to address them with you.
Thank you. Yes, Karen.
Evan Townsend, Spruce Run Drive. I wasn't gonna speak during this session, but I need to clarify something. Sometimes folks will accuse others of the behaviors they actually are conducting themselves, such as bullying, canceling, things of that nature. I'll challenge anybody in here, request anybody to go back and read any of our letters that we've written. Expressing our frustration with some of the issues such as an industrial tow yard that the planning commission was this close to approving in an agricultural zone. A high density housing complex that would have been 30 times higher density than anywhere else in the township. And there was debate over should it get approved. To me, those are things that have to be called out. They're uncomfortable. Kathleen, I promised you I would call out uncomfortable issues and I would try to be civil, right? You called and preached for civility. In recent meetings, some of the behaviors expressed by you and members of the board were not civil. When you shout down at the top of your lungs a resident, and I didn't know about being called the state police coming out to the house. That is an intimidation. That is an intimidation. That's very concerning. We're getting to a point where this is getting ridiculous. We need to get back focused on the vital matters that affect the township and the residents. And that includes right now the master plan revision review. And it needs to be done in a way where everybody who has an interest in expressing their opinion voices their opinion. And then the next step is critical. You and the planning commission, as Patrick said, both have to work in tandem. Execute what the people want. Don't just go through the motions and have Beckett and Rader put together some slapped up document that the planning commission and you guys decide is good enough. Because it permits more sewer hookups, more water hookups, high density housing where it shouldn't be. You know, a member of the board recently, and I'll quote, said something to the effect of, "The Chelsea I grew up in is gone, so let's let it roll." I don't believe that. This is a special place that should be protected. We are not going to be bullied. Everything we've written is balanced, fact-based, it's not personal. We went back today and reviewed our writings. We don't call out anybody by name. We call out facts, we call out behaviors we know about, we call out things that are documented in the minutes because they're public record. Everybody can look at them themselves. Can we get back on track where we're acting on behalf of the residents? You guys are paid and elected to act on behalf of the residents, not to have an agenda for more sewer hookups, more water hookups. Let's pay these old debts off any way we can. Chelsea, I grew up in is gone. Let's let it roll. We got to get away from it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments? I don't know if we're circling back for a second public comments from people. Dan Russell.
I too was not planning on speaking, or bringing anything up, but I echo everything Mr. Townsend just said, but, because now I think I can read between the lines of the, agenda tonight. And I've said this before at other meetings and it's on the record, but I feel it's relevant, today to, revisit the moment when the Finn property was going to be turned into a subdivision. We caught wind of it just by happenstance. We didn't get a letter sent to us for some odd reason, don't know. And most of our neighbors did not get this letter. So, but we heard about it through the grapevine. We come here to ask for any information on that. And we were told by Carol that, I don't know why you're here. This is going to pass. And she on I think Free Sylvan called me a liar. Well, she called me a liar. I was not here. It was my wife and my mother-in-law. We're both standing there, and we're treated like that. So when she seems to extend this olive branch, say, hey, if you got a problem, come in and talk to me. This was years ago. We were treated like that. So there seems to be a pattern that's developing here. And I expect something to be done about it, just so we don't have to deal with this. So to Kevin's point, that we can just get on with the business of the township and making this a great place that it is. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Or are we circling back for second chance for people we have no?
I was called out by me.
I don't think that is relevant, Scott, but you may come up for second public comment. Okay, I have something from you.
Decency and fairness and
There's a
Robert's
statute.
rules. Decency and fairness and Robert's rules of order. When called out, you have a right to defend yourself. According to our guidelines in the township, you filed no grievance against me prior to me writing up you for a complaint and listing about a half dozen things. Your claims that I asked you to do anything illegal falls on false witness ears. You never brought anything to my personal review that was false, and you can't name one now just to justify your attitude.
And Scott, any other public comments?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
The agenda seems to be 2/3 reports and 1/3 business.
Yes.
Just a suggestion, take it or leave it. Maybe reports should be filed in written form, and then it can be opened up for questions and answers, rather than having to sit here.
That's what we do. We put it in the consent agenda, and we approve the consent agenda with the minutes and the bills and the reports, and then the actual agenda comes after that, unless someone has issues with the minutes or, pull it out of the consent agenda, but
Perfect, thank you.
thank you. We were on that one. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much for that public comment portion. The library is here, Lori Coriel, our library director, and Susan Lackey, our Sylvan Township Library representative, is also here.
And Wendy.
And
She
yes,
is
Wendy White.
an at-large member of our board as well, and they are fabulous. I'm going to take a minute of your time. I don't know if you saw that fabulous vehicle when you drove up, but that is years of planning that has come to fruition, and we hope that you take advantage of it. Starting in the fall, we're going to be traveling throughout the library service area with 3 stops in Sylvan Township. Every month, one here at this location, right before this meeting, actually, at Sylvan Crossing, and also at Robin Hills Farm. We're also going to be stopping visiting the St. Louis Center as well. I just wanted to thank you for your support, Kathy, especially for her support and engagement throughout this very long process. And we hope to see you at the library or on the bookmobile in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Lori, and board members and library workers and everyone who helped put this together. The community really. So it's a wonderful thing. Thank you. And you're going to be leaving some of those flyers that have the information on them for residents, and we'll put that on the website too. So you have to take it with you today. You can find that later. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming out with the unit. Okay, so I just want to say real quick, speaking of the library, our prior library representative Jan Carr had a really great just sort of blurb about the difference between public meetings. So a meeting held by the Sylvan Township Board is for the purpose of conducting township business. A regular township meeting is not a public meeting, it's a meeting held in public. The difference between these two types of meetings is that a public meeting is usually designed for the free flow of information among all in attendance, whereas a meeting held in public is for observation with public input at specific times on the agenda. And I know it can be kind of confusing and people don't just come in knowing this. I didn't necessarily know this, you know, sometimes we have public hearings when it is appropriate during the business part of the meeting to have exchanges between the people and the people here. Our regular township board meetings are township business meetings that we do in public. The Open Meetings Act, you know, allows everyone to be here and watch us deliberate and watch us vote. And also give their public comments during the public comment portion of the meeting. So that was helpful to me, again. I don't know if everybody knows that, but that sort of is the structure around this, and this is why when there was a disturbance during the business part of the meeting last time, there's statutes against that and there were repercussions. But, okay. So thank you for hearing me out on that. I think that's an important difference to understand between public hearings and business meetings in public. So now we have the consent agenda, which contains the June 1st, June 6th, June 21st minutes, presentation of bills, correspondence, and the board reports that were submitted. I had several things, several corrections on the minutes. And most of them were just typos. I don't know if you want me to run through those with you or maybe just. The meeting minutes from June 6th under correspondence from Rick Clement. If we could, it says Kennedy wanted to comment on her resignation letter from her former deputy, but I prefer to say the resignation letter. We're on page 304 for the June 6th meeting. Up at the top, correspondence from Rick. The June 6th. 304 at the top, correspondence. So if we could strike her resignation, the resignation, and if we could include Rick's first name, deputy, Rick Clement. I would like to indicate that he was frustrated with the lack of kindness. I think the way it reads, it sounds like maybe I'm saying that, but I wanted that to be reflected that Rick was frustrated with the lack of kindness in the community in the office. Down under public comment where Patrick is, I think there's a typo with FOIA where it says Nimke said one FOPIA. That's just a typo.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was it on that one. I had some concerns about the June 21st special meeting minutes. And I asked, Amanda, if I could get a copy of the reporting because I think there's some information missing, some discussion missing here. Well, so under on page 205, it talks about under Chelsea Interconnect. It says that Kosick had shared his concerns with the former city manager after the previous board meeting. Kosick said connecting the blah, 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 here. In that conversation, and maybe it's indicated later, I didn't see it, under 405. Maybe that's where we should be, page 4 of 5. It says here that Kennedy thought it was inappropriate for Kosick to sit down with Atkinson to discuss his concerns. And my concern was rather that it was said that he said that he spoke to Mr. Atkinson after the meeting and said what Silver Township's goals were. I can't remember the exact words, but that was what I took issue with. Not, anybody can talk to anybody, but that anyone will be representing as a blessing on the township, their own personal idea, as opposed to, you know, having something where we all talked about. And I know that there was discussion and you had thought that I had done that, but I hadn't.
Well, I actually went and came in and read, I have just a few minutes between my appointments today, but to listen quick. So I can read what was actually said.
From which portion, from the portion in this that
From that portion
we're,
you're referring to.
okay,
So, but earlier in that conversation at 28 minutes and 58 seconds. Kurt says, here are, when he's referring to his conversation with Atkinson, he says, here are a couple of concerns I have. So he initially is talking about sharing his concerns. And then with this portion that you're talking about at 1 hour and 15 minutes. Kurt says, when I talked to Roy and explained this to him, sort of like Sylvan's position, I asked him what had changed. And goes on and talks and asks questions. And then you say, when I approached him to say this,
I would prefer just to hear it personally, I would, and,
But
you know,
when I-
however, we need to do the minutes tonight, and.
well, we do have to approve that.
Well, then I'll just, I will vote no on this,
Okay.
these set of minutes, fine, because I would prefer to hear from myself. Yeah. So then I would like to pull out the Board of Trustee, which minutes is that, the June 21st, is that what we said? Yes, June 21st minutes, for consideration under new business.
Well, then if I will, I am going to read into these minutes what was actually said. Because you say to Kurt, when I approached him to say this is Sylvan's stance on this, I feel like that is no better than me going and saying this is Sylvan's stance. We hadn't had this meeting yet, so that was a little premature for you to propose whatever it is that you're saying. And Kurt said, you did the same thing. You went and had meetings and didn't have board approval, and that is why we're sitting down and talking today about the details. You did it before I did it. And you said, so we met and Amanda was there, and when Amanda wasn't there, Carol was there and Bob Skull was there for every meeting. And Kurt just said, I'm not buying it.
Kurt said, no, I recall that, but I don't think that's in the minutes either, so.
Of course, because we're saying
So-
I'm paraphrasing it. So I said, you said, you don't believe that Amanda was there, or Bob or Carol. And I just said, the point he's making is that it wasn't a board. The board had decided to do that.
All right,
That is all.
well, that's, yep, I'd like to listen to it just the same on my own, so then. If I would like to pull out the June 21st and put it at the end, is there anything anybody else would like to pull from the consent agenda? June 20 minutes. Okay, approval, I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda as amended.
I'll move for the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion by Rod, supported by Kurt. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Approval of the consent agenda is next. We have a couple things we need to strike tonight. Sandy Schulze is not here today, and she was instrumental in the team building with Washtenaw Community College. So I would like to remove that item until next month. So see if you can address that, and there are some documents in your packet, and those will just carry over. We also need to strike the closed session. We don't have, we didn't receive our memo, and we are going to be looking at doing that at a different time next week. Did everybody get an email about that today? Looks like you might have.
I haven't checked.
Okay. Okay, yeah, Mr. Thal is gonna provide us with a memo, and that it was late coming, so we didn't. Do we also, you know, Sandy's other item that she's been promoting here is the minutes transcribing for the boards of trustees. And she's not here to address that or update that. Would it be okay with the board if we remove that? Table that till next month when trustee Schulze will be there. Okay, so, unless there's any additions or subtractions, I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda, striking minutes, transcribing of Board of Trustees and Planning Commission. Under unfinished business, striking the T building from Washtenaw Community College under new business. Striking the closed public session on confidential attorney-client memo. And adding the June 21st draft special reading. I'll support that. Is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Thank you. All right. Washtenaw bond contribution. The board had a meeting with, Washtenaw County Finance, individuals. They had discussions about, payments and what we could pay down, and, as we know, the refunding, not refinancing, the refunding of the bond that we did for the final 4 years is not callable, so those monies can't be paid in advance. But there is an advance that the county's been carrying over for us when the millage wasn't raising enough funds to make the bond payment. The county made up the difference for us, and that has been rolling over and accruing an interest rate, a separate interest rate, in addition to the rate that, is on the bond. And those monies would be able to be paid now, prior to the 4 years, if that's something that the board wanted to do. Does that reflect everybody's
Well,
understanding?
Again, my understanding is that the bond agreement is between Washtenaw County and I think it's currently PNC Bank.
Okay.
And that bond, Washtenaw County can't pay off early.
Mhm.
But what we're trying to figure out is can we, the township, write a check and get ahead on this thing to the county,
Mhm.
and they continue to make their payment schedule. And we weren't sure if that was doable. Because they said that the actual bond language make reference to the fact that it has to be taxpayer 4.4 mils, it has to come in on this schedule.
Mhm.
But I don't believe that. Somebody was gonna look into that to see if that's the case.
Well, yeah, and the kind of reason to I talked to, I had a meeting with John Axe, who was the bond counsel, he's, semi-retired now. He works for Clark Hill, is the firm he works for, and someone would be refunded. Someone from Clark Hill was available for us with questions. But Mr. Axe, called me, and I had Rod Lupin on the conversation with, a couple of the people from, the same people from the county. It was Tina Gavalier and, Tom Sweeney. Mr. Sweeney. And he was going to do a write-up for us, on his opinion on this. And he was gonna get it to me before the 4th, and his office is right downtown on Woodward, and then there was 4th of July, and he's semi-retired, so I'm still waiting for that from him. But I will certainly send it around, and it sort of spoke to, the issue of whether we're required to use tap fees or not, whether it's a choice, we always have a choice, but whether it's required, what other revenue stream, funding streams are required to go to that bond. So.
Okay, and the other thing that I thought was important is, we had 2.2 million in settlement funds. And we've had over $1 million in tap fees. So we brought in well over 3 million, which is so my comment was, well, why aren't we getting rid of the 4.4 mils then? And taking this 3.7 million that we have
Mhm.
and make that payment to the county as scheduled.
Mhm.
But what I learned was the bond itself looks like it's still a little over 3 million. However, the advance by the county
Mhm.
is another million.
Correct.
So the total amount that's owed is a little over 4.
My understanding is it's 4 million left on the bond. When we refunded, it was for $4 million. 4 years, we're raising $1 million. So at $4 million, there was 4 years left. Now, the advance is on top of that, so that's my understanding is 4 million for the bond plus the advance. You know, which fluctuates, but as you say, is around,
Well, it was 3.8 for the bond. I think that even 4.8
4.8.
million
you
dollars.
know, right, right.
So, but we had one more major payment that's gonna be made this year towards that bond, I believe.
Mhm.
I think it either got made last month or will be made this month.
And that would have been $1 million.
I don't know what the amount was. Exactly.
So that would bring it back into the, if it was 3.8 plus 1, then it minus the one that came to be at 3.8.
We probably would, but then we would maybe have 3 years left on it, you know, like it's keeping in step with $1 million per year is what's left.
Well,
but-
we would have 3 years left, but I think the conversation also wants to circling around to, if we have the money, even if we can't pay it off because it's not callable, but we have the money, we could stop collecting. And that would be a policy choice that we would make,
Correct.
making sure that money is set aside and earmarked and making those payments, we then stop collecting from the residents.
And I
There-
think
there is a way.
maybe attitude, because Pat changed, but I think in the past, we talked about if we take all that money that the 3 million, the tap fees, and we put it all in there, then we don't have those monies. And I know there was a thought at one time, is like, we should have a little something in case something goes haywire, we got this, you know. Water plant over there that's getting older, this building itself is getting older, so I think. I remember an idea on the board being that it might not be the best fiscally responsible thing for us to take all that money and put it on there. I'm certainly a fan of using some of it, and I'm certainly a fan of paying off that advance. Because that's, you know, interest, we're paying the bond at an interest rate, and then we don't have enough money, so we're borrowing from the county and paying them another interest rate. It's, so, and we have money, so I'm a big fan and have been for a long time of paying off the advance. And then.
Paying off
but
the
then-
advance is one, but
Right.
if we're doing our due diligence, we do the work to get all the numbers of what, you know, we're starting to get that from Bob Skull, what are, you know, what repairs need to be done. And we have that money set aside. I mean, I feel like we need to have another work session where we're talking specifically about this and we put all those numbers on the table and
Right.
I mean, because I don't feel like I have enough understanding. And my sense is we don't have all those numbers to really understand what we need and then make a decision on what we can do. Right now, I don't feel like we have those numbers.
Right, I don't know that we have the number, I mean, we know what the bond is, and we know what monies we have.
But I really want to
So,
sit down and
yeah.
look at every
Oh,
single account
absolutely.
we have and know what it is and where the money came from to
Uh-huh.
make those decisions.
Yeah, definitely, and I'm all in favor of that as well, you know, more meetings we can have to talk about things, that's great, and this is a big deal. We inherited this from the people before us, and to be able to alleviate this, it would be fantastic. Everyone in this room has suffered under this, village, so there's no one here who wants to continue it needlessly. All right, so there's information on that. I guess I will just ask if we can table this item then pending the letter from John X. Okay. Well, how about I make a motion to table till next month?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Next we have the Freedom of Information Act policy. And this is the policy the board discussed in our special meeting, and we were going to have Susan make the changes that we requested. She was just doing this last week. She was out of town for the week before.
There's nothing that shows.
Yeah, right.
I don't remember.
Yeah, you're right, there's another, it's not like we're talking about. Well, what would the board like to do? Do you want to,
I know we okay that with false changes.
Well, you know, Rod, I'm saying at that meeting, it was very disorganized and it was very hard to understand what all changes were. And so I found it a bit confusing. And then finally I had some time to sit down with both versions and try to highlight the changes. And I cannot accept one of the changes, that Paul had and come through on minutes. And that was the calculation of fees under section 5, so that's number 5 on your copy. A fee will be charged for the labor cost of copying, duplicating, and researching for all personnel involved as provided herein. Now, I can give you a scenario where somebody wants a document and I have to go to another office and say, you know, I need a zoning document, or I need an assessing document that takes 5 minutes to find that and give it to me. If I had to go charge for that, because it's, by this I'll have to, that takes me more time than to get that document and send it out. I feel that's an undue burden on the clerk's office. And that's why we had verbiage in there for an excessively high cost. If it takes too much time, you know, we already have that verbiage in there. So I can't vote for this, just knowing the burden it puts on the clerk's office, and it will take me more time
Right,
to fulfill something like that. I get a lot of FOIAs like that.
yeah,
And it kind of hits it in the paragraph right below that too.
Well, he's saying the labor cost of search, search examination, review, and deletion. That's actually,
You must pay to charge a fee. So,
Okay.
reason high cost.
I just want that,
Yeah. I mean, you can clarify that.
yeah, why don't we just
Yeah.
get clarification from him on this, so we're all. Cause I agree, I know there's times where you just, and I didn't either.
I don't want to
Just would
stop.
take you more time.
Right.
And money to, right. Okay, let's, do you wanna see, clarity, what me or you or one of us, can ask Paul about that, cause it does seem like those two, conflict.
My name.
Okay, all right, beautiful, thank you. Okay. All right, then is there a motion to table the freedom of information?
So moved.
All right, thank you, Ron, any support?
Kurt.
Thank you, Kurt. Any other discussion? All in favor of tabling this item, say aye. Aye, opposed, say nay. Thank you. All right, another new policy that we came out of our special meeting is a policy for approval of township invoices. Looks like Susan. I'm not sure Susan exactly understood. I know we kind of did a sort of a flow chart. They would come in, go to the clerk, and then be distributed. She put it in the words here, so she wasn't at the meeting, so I make sure she's.
One part that wasn't part of it. That's right after approval by signature or initials and the appropriation number have been fixed is the strike. And then the invoice goes on, just so there's that 5 words.
Right, yeah.
I know we both agree, Kathy, that whoever approves it should know where it goes.
Well, and it's difficult, well, and it's, you know, it's difficult because. We have a big budget, we don't have that big of a budget compared to like a Scioto Township or another place or something, so we don't have that many GL lines. It would be, helpful if. When we approve them, we know where it's coming from. A lot of the invoices, Amanda, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this is. From when I used to do it, sometimes when you type in the vendor, it just pops up the GL code because we always pay Chelsea Print and Graphics for the printing line. So some of them don't, and then if it's not Amanda processing them, we're kind of asking a lot of the deputy maybe to know exactly where those lines are. So. I mean, I know it wasn't part of our discussion, I don't think it was part of the minutes, like, I don't think it was part of that thing. So. But I know that it would be helpful, if those numbers could be on there, and maybe. I don't know,
I would agree with you.
I never use general ledger, I don't know. Coming from me, they won't be on here because I don't know.
Well, I think I gave you a shift at one point, I started to, so that you, this vendor has this GL code.
You gave it for.
There's a number of vendors, I
One special.
know that.
Well, what would the board like to do? Do you wanna strike it? Do we wanna leave it in and work on it together? Maybe Rod, I know we can look at the invoices together. I mean, we don't, we have the same recurring invoices pretty much all the time, so. All right, we will strike this then for now, on the invoice. So, okay. All right, looking for a motion to approve the, finance 25 policy as amended. Thank you, Amanda. Any support? Thanks, Brad. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Policy on electronic email computer usage. Do you have anything on that? I don't either. I guess I'll make a motion to table this because there's no documents in our packet regarding this.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to table. Rod supported. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, moving down to new business, Adams Outdoor Billboard lease. You want to speak to that, Rod?
I finally got the lease all done, and all the falls. Recommendations were incorporated, you can see the strikeout. So they were all okay with everything. And they're going to give us their insurance. So everybody's comfortable with that. I'd like to make a motion that Kevin sign this and get it back to Kevin.
Second that.
All right, thank you. Motion by Rod, supported by Amanda. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, skipping team building, air conditioning unit. We have, yeah. Let's move into that.
Unfortunately, two of them we can omit right away. One of them is Cook and White, simply because the above equipment is currently on back order with an unknown shipping date. So there's no point in consideration. And the other one being Indoor Comfort, that is double what the other two are.
Yeah, that one was like 15,000.
Yeah.
So we're looking at your
So
server.
we got AirServe and Trusted. And Trusted had a lesser energy efficient unit that they're proposing. It's a 13 SEER instead of a 14 to 16.5 SEER. So it costs more money to operate and they're higher. Overall cost. So I did contact them, sir, because there was nothing on here that made me think what how many years parts and labor. So we do have 10-year parts, 2-year labor included. It's 79.583. And Trusted was 82.40 with the lesser unit.
And I'm sorry, last year meeting, what again?
A higher operating cost.
In air service, we have a maintenance plan, I think, with our current system.
Yeah.
And so they've been coming out and doing service. I think we've renewed contracts with them, so we've been happy with them. Yes.
I know Susan was willing, because we canceled on us 2 different times.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to remember that.
I think if we continue with them, certainly we have a discussion with them about that. So I would make the motion that we, award the contract to AirServe and get that unit replaced.
All right, motion from Rod to go with the AirServe quote. Thank you, Kurt. Board, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
And I will tell the board that the other two big units out there are the same age. They're from '99. So we're on borrowed time with them anyways, just like this one was. So I think that next year in budget, probably should replace it also. Oh, I have to consider that.
The agreements, right?
Thanks.
All right, next we have the consideration to acknowledge the revised phase 2 site plan for Sylvan Crossing. So as I understand, the site plan for phase 2 has changed a little bit between when it was submitted years ago, 2003, I think. And what's out there with plans is a little bit different. I know Tim McShane from Sylvan Crossing is here, so I don't know if you have any comments or wanna
No, I've
say anything.
been on this project for 3 years. This the plan that we have, that before he's the only one I've ever seen. So.
Well, I know you were surprised when we spoke on the phone, you were surprised that there was anything else. And so these were a little, they came, I think, late last week, Sylvan Crossing, the Sun Communities was kind enough to send this over. Also, let me,
Now we're trying to figure out, there's a couple of extra units in there that we're trying to figure out where those came from.
and I also just want to read real quick, the attorney says, the following is with regard to the township's approved site plan for Sylvan Crossing. Sylvan Crossing is a licensed manufactured home park and falls under the regulations of the State of Michigan Mobile Home Commission. In this regard, the state of Michigan approves their plan. The township has also approved Sylvan Crossing site plan as referenced in the 2007 consent judgment between Sylvan Crossing and the township. The township in the consent judgment has agreed to process without intentional delay or hindrance the approval of all applications for placement of the manufactured homes in compliance with the final township approved site plan. In the consent judgment, section 3.c provides that the property is subject to the final township approved site plan dated May 3, 2002. Last revised March 13, 2003. It is my understanding Sylvan Crossing has reconfigured phase 2 layout of units and now wants to begin placing these units in the manufactured home park. It is my opinion, as long as there is no objection from the township zoning administrator or the township's reviewing engineer, then the board should take action to approve the reconfigured layout. This would allow all parties to move forward in the future with an updated site plan and allow the new units to be placed on their pads. It is my opinion, the authorization to place these units must be based on a township acknowledgement of this updated site plan. Otherwise, the consent agreement requires compliance with the 2003 site plan. So I think this is just a formality for us to acknowledge this new site plan. I think the residents are coming in and wanting to get decks and garages, and the attorney said we can't really issue any permits until the board has acknowledged the site plan.
We have a letter of approval from the zoning administrator and the township reviewing engineer that would go with this.
I think I would have to look it up. Do you, Carol, do you?
I didn't do anything with this because it was out of my realm.
Because it was from.
It was consent judgment,
Consent
talked with
judgment.
all about it, but we
Right.
have all the letters, that have been reviewed by,
Sue.
NCI, Midwest
Reviewed by
Consulting.
NCI.
We just have that written down.
And I
Is
think
he saying no?
Kurt's letter
Yeah.
kind of was the impetus of that.
Yes, well, and in here, and I think there was a little confusion when I talked to Mr. McShane, he said, well, I thought this was already approved previously, and I think there's a letter in here that went out that I think maybe gave the impression that they were good to go and didn't need anything more from the township, but the attorney, is saying it sounds a little bit otherwise, that the board really needs to approve this. So if there was any other impression given that the board had approved it, that is not the situation. I apologize for that.
So my letter would have been before this request for putting 16 additional units into the plan.
You know, I don't know, I'm not sure when
So your letter
this-
went to 4 Leaf, and that 4 Leaf was doing that reconfiguration, so your letter stating kind of like, well, township, it was almost like they took it as a unilateral approval, is how 4 Leaf took it.
So poorly felt as though this new plan had already been approved.
Well, they were taking it that Kurt's letter was giving that approval. And I kept trying to say it's the board has to approve this, and so that's been like more than 3 weeks ago.
So, I know that, the engineer Matt Kanichke, I mean, again, this goes through the state of Michigan, so it goes through different channels than us, and Matt Kanichke went out and had a lot of pictures and comments and things that you took care of, some things you weren't able to take care of until, planting grass and things like that.
We're licensed by the state,
What's that?
we are licensed by the state.
Yep, that's, well,
And
and
he gave a
that's.
sign off letter, I think, that's, you know, so that was from DEQ or Eagle, sorry.
Right, from Eagle. And so they have signed off on it. It sounds like all permissions have been achieved. It's just really the board acknowledging this site phase 2 layout with 142 units. And then once we acknowledge that, then I think people can kind of get moving on their permits and doing things, but we need to do this formality and have it in my minutes that we acknowledged the 2023, the board acknowledged the 2023 site plan.
The tap fee money that we received, what's that based on? 124?
143.
It's based on 143. Yeah. Or 142.
142, this says,
142 or 143?
143 additional. That's what we pay tap fees on.
yeah, you know what I think? Wait. 139 to 281.
We had 138 on the original side and 143 on the other side. So the number might, we have one site on the original side that's a 0.
Oh, on phase 1, you mean, or okay. So you have 143 units. It looks like it starts at 139 and goes to 281. So let me, that seems like 142. Let me look. 281 minus 139. I must be missing one here because it looks like 142 on this phase 2 layout that they just sent us last week.
It starts at 289, or I'm sorry, 139 to 281.
Yeah,
That would be 142.
142.
It is 143.
Yeah.
It is 143. Not being inclusive, I'm not including
Yeah,
the
the
noise.
noise right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it is 143. Okay, all right. All right,
Well, what's the status of phase 3?
There is no phase 3.
So these documents still show 87 units. in phase 3.
I think they're not gonna pursue that or not at this
No,
point.
that ended up being borrowed pit.
It ended up being with
There's a
it.
big lake there now.
Oh,
So they had to backfill everything, so they actually took those units out.
you know, those will be coming.
That's backfill.
And I don't know if the Chelsea Area Fire Authority has reviewed this.
You know, I don't know, and I'm not sure, again, with the manufactured homes, it's so different than the other things that, we,
So this was a consent judgment, which would have been before we adopted fire code.
oh. So it might not apply,
It's like
it might be
it's
grandfathered,
before you adopt fire code, so
it predates that, so it's
Predates.
not, right. Hmm.
Well, I would move to approve it. Based on a family Catholic.
All right, what authority does Kappa have though? I mean, that's my only concern is that if you know, it goes to the manufactured homes part, does Kappa have an authority? So, I mean, we could.
Prove it.
Pending ask fall or ask,
Yeah.
You know,
Right, because the consensus judgment says that it's based on township's review and I believe it allows for new processes that come into place also. And I think you'd want to know if the fire department has any issues with what you.
For sure, everybody's been out there, believe me. I mean, we're the
it's a
state of-
surprise that they haven't been.
We
Okay,
have no letter.
not that I know of, but I'm not sure they're authority, right? So I mean, Paul has said pretty much, you know, what I read to you guys, that this is all under the Mobile Home Park Commission.
What about
So it's
permit?
different.
Every
That
state,
works.
under state.
That'd be helpful.
For Kevin review the fire. Okay.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you, Tim, for coming up tonight.
Tim, you're gonna be around tomorrow?
I will be.
Oh, I see it.
Okay, great.
Okay, and then, I pulled the July 21st minutes out. I don't know if I'm doing this correctly, but I feel like. I'm sorry, June, thank you. You're not even too July. And so you know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we pull those minutes out, then we can vote on them here. So is there a motion to approve? For July or June 21 minutes?
So make a motion to approve the June 21st, 2023 minutes.
Thank you. Amanda, is there support?
Yes, Kurt.
Thank you, sir. Is there any discussion other than what we had earlier?
Didn't want to use.
I wanted changes, but I don't have the recording. I know Amanda's, you know, saying what she heard when she wrote down, you know, in between today, but, I'm just not comfortable with. I'm just not comfortable with the way it reads, and I would like to listen to it,
Right, and then at the next board of trustees meeting, then you can make a comment and
and it would be preserved in the minutes about that. Yep, okay. Okay, so then we have a motion to approve those minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we're at the final public comment. Anyone who'd like to speak? Yes. Scott.
Based on the bond information that you talked about. My understanding of our loan situation is. The money on hand, if properly invested, that money could be used. For the pay down on the county go forward. The second thing is giving all our funds away before we fix. Parking, the building, get get a improvement plan put together. I don't think we should do anything until we understand where our money situation is. You're right, the sewer and the water tower, nothing has been done. There's an enormous amount of expense to do. And I really doubt if we give all our money away and are left with nothing, that the public's gonna approve another plan or another millage just to take care of these things. Secondly, I echo Mr. Townsend. I'd like to know who authorized the QR code to be sent with the taxes. Nobody has that authority, just saying it, put it in. Again, so it should be, the board should come to an understanding of. And then lastly, despite a little cherry picking, Opens Meeting Act allows a board to establish reasonable rules, regulations to enable it to do its business with a minimum procedure, such as Robert's Rules of Orders and limits on the amount of time individuals may speak during public comment. Many boards do encourage and allow public to comment on individual agenda items, and that's an individual board's choice, which should be spelled out in policy for both the board and the public to understand what is allowed outside the AMO OMA mandated public comment period. We do not have it.
Any other public comments? Yes.
I really didn't want to make this public comment. I started off making a comment about the master plan at the beginning, which I meant in a constructive way, even though I was saying negative things about the questionnaire, but I wanted to keep it on the subject of the master plan itself, and that didn't happen. There were many other comments made after me that did include more attacks or insinuations on people, and this has been going on for a long time. I'm not saying an attack or insinuation is necessarily wrong. I mean, if it's correct, it's correct to say it. But it was stated here that the people look through all their previous correspondence and stand behind everything they said as true and factual. If this keeps going on, I'm going to take that person at their word, and I'm going to blast out everything I've seen from them on Free Sullivan. And I'm going to answer every one of those accusations again. I mean, there were accusations of corruption, wild accusations of corruption. And maybe not directly, but strong insinuations of it. But you know, it's gotten to a point. I mean, and this is not a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness to avoid the actual issue and get personal. That's a sign of weakness that we can't discuss the actual issue anymore. And for me, have to say this is kind of weird, because actually I might agree on some of the actual issues. I certainly agreed on the questionnaire issue. In fact, I would probably read a little bit too much, but allegations are not facts. Insinuations are not incriminating. The end doesn't justify the means. Disagreement is not corruption. And the voice of the residents does not speak through me individually like a ventriloquist. If you want to see the voice of the residents, we need to reach out and have some actual public forums with the residents, or have that questionnaire done properly. And then we can talk about the voice of the residents. I know there's agreement about some of the things I'm saying. Right. So that's what we do before we say that, you know, the voice of the residents is this or that. I'd like to say that too. I mean, I have some opinions about what the residents think, or what some residents think. Like, optics are not reality necessarily. They could be. And misunderstandings are not always somebody else's fault. I can say it as a person who has stated misunderstandings before and have had to retract some things. So sometimes that happens. I can't say that everything I've written on Free Sylvan is correct. If something's not correct, in fact, Carol here several times has pointed out things I've said that were incorrect and I've had to retract them. And I would thank her for that. And I do. Some things she said I still disagree with. That's the way like this. I really want to focus back on the issue. And I guess I don't have any more time to speak today, but I really look forward to these sessions where Beckett and Rader can give us education on the master plan. And even further than that, some sessions where the residents can freely exchange information or thoughts or ideas or opinions. We might not come together, but at least we can try to have the discussion. I'd like to be a part of that discussion and invite as many other residents as possible to be part of it too. But I hope it happens before the master plan is approved. And without accusation of corruption. Thank you.
I think I didn't identify myself originally, Carol Patchy, but Dan, I would like to address your comment about what I said years ago. I will say that's patently false. I would never have said anything like that. I would have said, and everybody that knows me would say about any rezoning that comes forward, I don't predict at all what the planning commission will do. I think Kathy and Rod know for sure that I've heard probably, over years past. I take the information, the planning commission reviews it. I never say it's a done deal because I don't know what the planning commission is going to do. I may say, it's eligible because it meets this criteria. However, the planning commission may not find it otherwise. So I really regret the fact that you put words in my mouth and said that I had said that, or to your wife and mother-in-law or whoever it was that came in here. I would never have said that.
First, I would like to echo what Patrick said. I hope that this whole master plan revisiting gets opened up to public forum so that we don't have more situations like tow yards trying to be put in our backyards when it doesn't fit the neighborhood. We fought very hard to get the planning commission to agree to look at it in a narrow scope, and so I hope we're not marginalized and silenced. And we can all sit down and have an exchange of ideas to come up with the best possible plan for Sylvan Township moving forward. You're never gonna please all of the people all of the time. But an open dialogue is the only way to ensure less discord moving forward. Second, I can't believe I have to say this, but I am so appalled by the treasurer's statement that if invoices come to me, I'm not gonna put the account numbers on because I don't know it. Really? Read your chart of accounts. It is not that difficult. You should know what your department number is, or department numbers that you are responsible for. And it's really not that hard to look down and say office supplies, okay, it's 727 or 726 or whatever the number is, and write it on the invoice. That is the best way to ensure mistakes don't happen, is you have the person who authorized the purchase tell the person paying the bills what account number it should come under, and the person paying the bills reviews it to make sure a mistake hasn't been made and can clear it up before it makes it to the list of bills to be paid. This is not rocket science. This is what everybody in the
governmental world does. Appalling statement. And number 3, just in skimming through your FOIA thing, I found 2 typos on this particular page. So maybe y'all want to really read this before you approve it next time, because it says on this page, will be notified of the amount clue. Not due, clue. And at the bottom, it says the FOIA coordinator, not FOIA. And I know they're typos, but I think we can read this a little bit and at least eliminate all the ones that are obvious.
Thank you, thank you.
Another public comment tonight?
Yes.
You were almost out the door.
I don't know about that. And I would have been on the road. However, to Carol's point, you knew it was coming, right? So my very first experience, not even my first, my wife's very first experience with Sylvan Township government was when she walked in the door and asked for some information about this rezoning that was suddenly taking place in our backyard. And we didn't know who Carol was. But as when my wife and mother-in-law came in, they were treated like that. My wife came home and she was livid. She was almost in tears, like how she was treated. And then she said, and then that woman left, and then this little old lady, she didn't say little, she said this older lady in the back came up and helped her get the documents that she could have. Right, so Carol didn't give us anything that we requested, and I suspect it was Dawn Catalyst that did give us the documents. God rest her soul. But so we didn't have a dog in this fight when this happened, right? I didn't make this up last week. I think this was brought up in Wing Check Minutes years ago. This was brought up and nothing was said about it back then by Carol. So this isn't something that I just made up. This is something that happened. Well, my wife says it happened and my mother-in-law said it happened. So I've got to believe it. So I just want to put a period on that comment, but that's all. But thanks, I think, for a generally productive meeting.
Any other public comments? All right, Board of Trustee comments. Okay, you like to go ahead?
The agenda for the PC for that meeting was posted. I posted it. And it was on Minutes in Demand. And I unposted it after we had to pull the survey because it was posted as a PDF of the full packet and I couldn't separate it. So that's why you couldn't find the agenda later. The agenda was up there well before the meeting and it was up there after. Until I pulled it. And as for the monies being invested, you should look in your packet because there is one of the investments in there that has over $1.25 million. And there's another investment that's over $1.25 million. So don't tell me I'm not investing money.
You want to make me do this?
It's in there.
Well, I read it,
Didn't seem like you did.
really.
The other. I would just like to speak real quickly about the master plan survey that was put together by Beckett and Rader. There was, I think, a misunderstanding. And, you know, we have so few ways that we can contact the residents in Sylvan Township. We really wanted to take advantage of the tax bill mailing to get the information out there. So Beckett and Rader, you know, they're handling this. We're paying them $13,000. I think the contract's in our packet. It does include open houses, you know, an educational session. I don't think those have been, specific dates have been planned for those yet, but those are certainly coming, all part of what the Sylvan Township residents are paying Beckett and Rader for, including the survey. I understand people had difficulties with it. It wasn't created by someone here in our office. It's the minds over there at Beckett and Raider. So I think there was a misunderstanding. We wanted to put something in the tax bills to kind of say, you know, this will be coming. But in our contract with them, it clearly has that the planning commission will review the draft, survey. So it was a misunderstanding, and it's difficult to get, out ahead of that once that's out there. So I do apologize. I tried to put something online. Mr. Van Goor's not here, but I will, you know, make sure that as soon as it's ready, we find some way to communicate to everyone. And it's certainly not the way that I wanted this to roll out. But the mistakes happen. So, you know, the planning commission has given their feedback. Beckett and Raider is incorporating that right now. I think they're making some changes, and we'll get that survey out, but it won't be the only opportunity someone has to give input. There will be multiple opportunities. And again, I can send anyone the contract who wants to look at it. It sort of outlines all the things they're going to do, and they really are driving this bus. This is their thing that they're doing. And my understanding is the board kind of doesn't have a whole lot. I mean, it's a planning commission action. And I think the board can approve it, but I don't know that it's, I mean, maybe I'm out of my wheelhouse here, but I don't know that it's necessary. It's really a planning commission document that they're going to put together. It'll come to the board, and then we will approve it as we did in 2017. So I just want to assure people there will be opportunities for comment. The survey will be live. I apologize for any miscommunication, misunderstanding that happened. And we'll have the survey ready and live when it has incorporated the appropriate people's comments. And I guess that's what I have to say about that. Wow, you know, sometimes there's a lot of things during public comment at the beginning, and I'm always writing things down that I want to go back and revisit. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of all the things. I think that's the biggest thing that I wanted to say tonight is, you know, that about the survey. And I appreciate all the people coming out tonight, and especially, you know, the talks about how we can work together. You know, nobody here is an enemy. Nobody here is working against, you know, when we're neighbors. And we're not enemies, and I hope that we can find ways to work together. We're not always going to agree on things, but there's processes, and everyone's voice will be incorporated to the best of our abilities. I don't have any other comments, I don't think, at this time.
Oh, wait. We're gonna have a meeting with the city of Chelsea.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Mayor Pacheco was out of town for a couple of weeks. She just wrote to me last week and said that she would be interested in getting some dates together. I think she asked me if I would throw out some dates. So if you have an open calendar, then I can have them do that, and we'll work with stuff they have. It would be, me and us all. Yeah, I will get that down. I don't think they have a city manager yet. So.
Okay, and then I put together a document, sort of the meeting agenda, how we should approach it, and I appreciate any feedback on that.
Yeah, you know, I kind of have one too. We both apparently were working on one, so maybe we can, you know, I mean, they're probably going to do the same things. We're just discussing with Westchester, you know, the site plan, the utilities, the water. So, yeah, well, we can work on that. We'll have an agenda for Thursday. And that's a meeting with Westchester. Right? The meeting Thursday is with Sue Dickinson regarding Westchester. And then we will have a meeting on the Chelsea Interconnect as soon as I can get that scheduled.
Okay, and there I put together a document that says, you know, these are the stakeholders.
Oh, is that for the water? For the interconnect?
There's two.
Okay, I'll look. I don't know if I saw the interconnect one. But another thing is I'm missing emails. Ms. Townsend's email that was sent to the board, I didn't receive until it was brought to my attention. And so I've communicated with our technology people, this is twice, I had an email from Mr. McShane also, and it looks as though it's coming to me. It has the michigan.gov, and it's not showing up in my inbox. So fortunately, I knew about it, and I will get back to you if you're not satisfied with what we talked about tonight. But I want to apologize for that too, it's, technology is wonderful when it works, but when it doesn't, it can be really problematic, so just want to mention that. That happens sometimes, so if you send an email, don't get a response, maybe that's what occurred. Maybe we can find ways to connect other ways with this situation. Okay, nothing else? All right, we have a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn from Rod. Thank you. Motion from Rod, support by Kurt. Motion to adjourn at 8:32. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you.
Joe, the state paid. 3.023 million. The class is not even listed to them. Don't tell me I did not read it. This is my backyard. It's like, hey, my backyard. I can walk there. That's right.
Do I need to turn this off?
Yeah.
I feel like, oh, here.
I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Okay.
I was, the first one I was,